of years. And now we're going to hear about Maurten.
Yeah. So, hello everybody. So, first of all, I have a background in biotech and pharma, but wanted to do something fun. And we created a company called Laminara Group with the goal of sort of reduce risk of the use of carbohydrates and sugars, reduce the damage of them. And we created sort of one medtech company and one fun box. And I will talk about the fun box today. And the fun box name is Maurten. So, see if this works today. No, still doesn't work. Yeah, anyhow, I will see if I can. Yeah. So first of all, I will give you a short background about sports drinks. And sports drinks is something you don't speak about too much, I guess, in this forum. But in the 1960s, a clever doctor in Florida, at Florida University, he realized that if you mix sugar, salt, and water, you can actually enhance endurance for the athletes. And this was quite big. And 50 years later, we still have the same products. I would say nothing has changed. But they were right. They were quite clever. It's actually true. Higher carbohydrate intake per hour correlates with better results. So this you can see in modern research and modern science. And in theory, the faster you run, the higher intake you need per hour. And there is a big problem with this, because what we see is actually the lack of carbohydrates is the biggest problem in sports today. And this sounds a little bit strange. But the products today, if you use too much carbohydrates, you will have problems. And the problems we like, because we like to solve problems. So the first and one of the main issues is if you get too... Oh, now it's not working. So thank you for switching. So if you have too much carbohydrates, you will have slower gastric emptying, which means you will have induced GI stress, and you will have problems. Probably a lot of you guys who's been running Göteborgsvarvet or similar have noticed the problems with GI issues. But also, more seriously, I would say, you will have a delay of water absorption, and so you won't have the things you really need to perform. The second problem we have looked into a lot is actually the oral health. And when you're running, thank you. Does it work now? Yeah. So when you're running or doing exercise, the saliva production is much less than in the Nordic if you're watching TV. So this is a good example. It's a study performed in 302 athletes in London, and they realized quite horrifying figures in the oral health. About 55% had the caries, 45% had erosions, main part of the acid in these type of products. And 76 or close to 80% had gingivitis, which is sort of gum inflammations. And of course, you can look at it that the athletes won't look pretty in the mouth, but we also look at it in another way, that you will have less performance from the athletes if they have inflammations. So now I will talk about the technology, how we solve this. So first of all, we were thinking pharma ways, and we wanted to do a transport system for carbohydrates. And we solved it by using what we call natural hydrogel encapsulation. So we make a mesh out of biodegradable polymers, and we can encapsulate or embed the carbohydrates, the sugar, and the water. And when we started doing this, we were looking at all the products that were out on in the sports industry, and we were quite embarrassed. So we started to take away everything you don't have any use of. So we took rid of acid, colorants, preservatives, flavors, and antioxidants. So the drink technology is quite clever. It's a similar ways that have been used in the pharma industries for many years. So we actually have a pH-sensitive drink. So when you drink the sports drink, we create the hydrogel in the stomach. We encapsulate the carbs, the sugar, and we're lowering the osmolality, and it goes quicker down to the intestine, and the pH goes up, and you can actually absorb the sugar much better. So this is how it works. This is our sports drink and goes into simulated gastric acid. You can see we instantly form the hydrogel structure. So today I was discussing with myself, should I show you guys our 9 clinical trials or collaborations with all the universities in 6 countries, or should I do something fun? And I wanted to show exactly what we have done with running as an example this year. So we found an article in the New York Times, and there was a little bit crazy professor in England trying to make a marathon runner run on a marathon within 2 hours, which is really, really crazy because the world record today is 2 hours and 3 minutes, and 3 minutes is a lot in a marathon to be able to run over. So he is also, I think he's in the medical board of the IOC, and he's an anti-doping guy. So he thought, if we can use science in sports and actually use innovations and do cool stuff, then we can be able to achieve this. So we called him up, and he actually flew over from Kenya, and he met us up, and he looked at our technology and said, this is the holy grail within sport nutrition. So he had a really good runner in his team, Kenenisa Bekele. He wasn't really good at the time. He hadn't performed really in 7 years, but still one of the best runners in the history, I would say. So we decided, we set up a goal. He should run Berlin Marathon and aim for a really, really, really good time. And so we went to Ethiopia and started to train him, which is very fun. So we started with the technology, and we started with drinks with about 7% carbohydrates. And this is a really, really high number. Normally, they use drinks that are 3% carbohydrates. So we started with 7, no problem, went up to 10%, and then went up to 14%, which is sort of crazy because it scientifically shouldn't work. Then we went to Berlin, and this was one of the most exciting times, I would say, in my career of making companies. So we're standing there, and Bekele, he was running on a 14% sports drink, actually getting more than 100 grams of carbs an hour, which never happened in sports history in marathon. So he performed well. He took the 2nd fastest time in history, and it took 2.5 minutes of his personal best. So now we're starting to get belief that it's actually working. So in October, we decided to start testing the product on people that have never tried it before. And the product was given to Abel Kiri, who won Chicago Marathon. He was the only one who used Maurten in the race. Then we went to New York, took a guy who was, I think he was ranked number 8, Girmay Gebrselassie. And he used the 40% drink, and he won by over 2 minutes. So now we were confident and started training of another sub-2 athlete. Because when we did the race in Berlin, the 2nd guy actually called us up and said, what are you doing, guys? I need to try this as well. So we started to try now Wilson Kipsang, who is also one of the 3 best runners in the world. And we went to Kenya, and we started with 40% because now we were confident, and then we got up to 18% and see if it's possible. And it was possible. So then we went to Tokyo to compete, and we were actually quite surprised because Adidas then did a big thing in media about their sub-2 project and showing up the shoes. We were quite nervous because we have never tried the shoes, so we didn't want the Adidas to fuck this up for us, if you say so. But it went well, and he ran, and he runs so beautiful, I would say. He's one of my favorites. So you can see the drink bottle in his hand. And he took the fastest time in Asia in history, and he took the track record by over 2 minutes. Now people were actually starting to talk about us. We tried to have a low profile. We said that show, don't tell. And we got media attention, and we got in Sports Illustrated. I think it's 50 million people reading it about. And it was the first article since the 60s, which is quite fun. So at the same time in March this year, we launched the first products, or Drink with 320 and 160. And by this time, we actually could verify in the science that we had a really high GI tolerability, very high oxidation efficiency, and we have a faster gastric empty, and we also have a very gentle oral exposure. So we went to Boston, and we won Boston Marathon, and we won London Marathon. And then another shoe giant were actually hitting us. So I will show you.
Breaking the 2-hour marathon barrier is impossible. Everyone knows that. History knows it. Science knows it. Anyone in their right mind knows it. It's crazy. Nobody can run that fast for that long. So, we're doing it.
Nike entered the show, and as you know, this was the biggest event. This was broadcast in CNN weeks before the race. They're renting the Monza track. They're bringing in 500 people, spending $25 million in one day. And they have 50 pacers of the best athletes to actually pace the team of 3 people trying to break the barrier. And they almost did. Eliud Kipchoge, he ran in 2 hours and 25 seconds, which is amazing. And what's also is amazing, it leaked out that they were using Maurten from Sweden. So they used our drink in the race. You can read about it everywhere now. So then comes August, and we have the world champion. Of course, we have a really good. Jeffrey Curry wins the men's marathon. Rose Chelimo wins the ladies' marathon, running with Maurten. And today, if I'm very humble, I would say that most of the top athletes in track and field are using Maurten. And we just signed with Mo Farah. So this is, I tried to round up very quick. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I'll have time for a question. We'll go over here. So this is what you do when you just have fun at work?
Yes, we have a lot of fun, actually. Yeah.
So how come you chose that approach, going into the sort of fun box to try and do this, instead of staying in the strict life science box?
Yeah, I've been in the life science for a while, and you know how it is. So I really saw the opportunity to do something fun. And we actually, what I didn't say is we have a big laboratory. We're 20 people now. We're doing clinical trials in, I think, 6 countries. 3 have already done. We're working with the Olympic committees in Sweden, Denmark, England now actually, and internationally as well. So we do a lot of science, and this is just the fun part of it. So trying it out.
We were discussing earlier, and you were saying that the intention is to take this back into healthcare.
Yeah. Yes.
The ideas
course, yeah.
and.
So we have the fun box, Maurten, and then we're also doing a medical company, which we hopefully will start doing stuff quite soon. And there's a completely different market setting, as you know. So we're going into clinical or medical nutrition. So where we see a lot of effects, for example, for elderly people, because we have, for example, one product that I didn't show today, which has 60% carbohydrates and almost 0 effect on the teeth. So there's a large problem with sick people, with cancer treatment as well, with kids that getting damaged teeth and also actually having problems with the stomach. So if we can solve this is quite interesting for that field as well. But we started with the fun stuff.
And I think this is so inspiring, and I think for me, when I go around and talking about change in healthcare, one of my key messages is you have to allow yourself to have fun at work, and you have to find environments and change that you can actually enjoy while doing them. And I think this is a excellent way of showing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Success through fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.